In this video, I'm going to go a bit down memory lane and list my top 20 side-scrolling arcade beat-em-ups that I absolutely loved as a kid. This is the genre that I grew up with, and these are the types of games that I used to gravitate towards and play whenever I would go to the seafront arcades as a kid. These were the types of games that you could just jump right into and have hours of fun playing them, as at the time you could play arcade games for a relatively cheap price. So these are my top 20 arcade side-scrolling beat-em-ups. At number 20 we have Vigilante. Vigilante is a classic side-scrolling beat-em-up that puts players in the role of a lone martial artist fighting to rescue his kidnapped girlfriend, who would you believe is Madonna, from the vicious street gang known as the Skinheads. Set in a crime-ridden city, the game delivers fast-paced brawling as players battle through the urban backstreets, junkyards and rooftops, taking on waves of enemies armed with chains, clubs and knives. Armed with bare-knuckle strikes and devastating kicks, the Vigilante must fight off enemies with precise timing whilst also grabbing the occasional nunchucks, which is the game's only weapon, which help to even the odds. Combat is simple yet challenging, as enemies swarm the player relentlessly, requiring quick reflexes to survive. With its tight controls, gritty atmosphere and classic arcade challenge, Vigilante is a spiritual successor to Kung Fu Master and remains a beloved old-school brawler known for its fast action and brutal difficulty. Next at number 19 we have P.O.W, aka Prisoners of War. This is a military themed beat-em-up where you play as a prisoner of war, breaking free from captivity, taking down enemy soldiers and hijacking vehicles as you escape from the heavily fortified camp. The game features a variety of weapons like knives, machine guns and grenades, giving players a number of different weapons to help them fight their way through the various stages. It's a classic side-scroller with fast-paced action and an intense war atmosphere. This is a game that's a lot of fun, and I think it never really gets a mention in these types of videos, so I'd highly recommend giving it a go if you get the chance. At number 18 we have Two Crude Dudes. Set in a post-apocalyptic future, Two Crude Dudes is an over-the-top, high-energy beat-em-up that embraces wild action, humour and destruction. Players control two muscular mercenaries known as the Crude Dudes, hired by the government to take back post-nuclear New York City from the evil crime group Big Valley. What sets Two Crude Dudes apart is its over-the-top gameplay. Players can punch, kick and even lift and throw nearly anything, including cars, street signs, barrels and even enemies. The combat is fast, chaotic and exaggerated, with plenty of comic book style action as the dudes brawl through ruined city streets, labs and industrial zones, facing off against bizarre mutant enemies, cybernetic bosses and explosions galore. With its vibrant cartoonish art style, outlandish humour and fun co-op play, Two Crude Dudes is a purely fun, no holds barred beat 'em up that doesn't take itself too seriously. It's all about big muscles, big attitude and even bigger destruction. At number 17 we have Ninja Warriors. Set in a dystopian future, the Ninja Warriors put you in control of two cybernetic ninjas, fighting against an oppressive dictatorship. What made this game unique was its multi-screen arcade cabinet, which provided an extended view of the battlefield to the left and to the right. It was basically like playing on a widescreen monitor. The action is tough, with enemies attacking you from all sides, but your powerful Ninja Warriors can slice through them with shurikens and devastating melee attacks. This was such a unique style of game at the time, and always attracted a crowd at my local arcade. At number 16 we have Street Smart, and this was a game that consumed a lot of my money as a kid. And whilst it's not technically a side-scrolling beat-em-up, I've still decided to include it in this genre. The game blends beat-em-up mechanics with one-on-one fighting. Street Smart has you playing as either a karate man or a wrestler, as you battle your way through a series of tough street fights for fame and fortune. Unlike traditional side-scrolling beat-em-ups, the fights take place in enclosed arenas, and you have to dodge, counter and land powerful blows to win. Though this game is often overlooked in my opinion, I think it's a fun and enjoyable mix of arcade brawling with fighting game elements that really makes it stand out. At number 15, we have Shadow Warriors, and this is the arcade version of Ninja Gaiden. It was known for its brutal difficulty and cinematic cutscenes. You play as Ryu Hayabusa, battling your way through crime-ridden city streets, swinging from poles and executing acrobatic attacks. Unlike the NES version, this one focuses more on traditional beat-em-up mechanics rather than platforming. The game's fast-paced combat and ninja aesthetic made it a must-play for arcade fans back in the day. At number 14, we have Captain America and the Avengers. This comic book inspired beat-em-up lets you play as Captain America, Iron Man, Hawkeye or Vision, as they battle Red Skull and his army of supervillains, including Crossbones, Whirlwind and Ultron. The game features colourful comic panel styled cutscenes and allows players to use long-ranged attacks, which was rare in beat-em-ups at the time. It's a fun classic superhero arcade game with great co-op action, and from what I can remember, this was one of the first arcade games that I fully completed as a kid. At number 13, we have Captain Commando. Set in a futuristic version of Metro City, this beat-em-up stars Captain Commando and his bizarre team, a ninja, a mummy-like alien and a baby in a mech suit. The gameplay follows the Final Fight formula, but adds sci-fi weapons, rideable mechs and over-the-top enemies, like mutant gangsters and cyborgs. This was a must-play back in the day, and fortunately, it is readily available on multiple platforms at a pretty cheap price, so I'd highly recommend giving it a go if you've never played it. At number 12 we have The Punisher. This violent action-packed beat-em-up has you playing as either Frank Castle, aka The Punisher, or Nick Fury, as you take down the Kingpin's criminal empire. With brutal melee attacks, gunplay and environmental interactions, it delivers a fast and fluid combat experience. Capcom's signature arcade polish really shines through, with detailed sprites and hard-hitting action. This was, and still is, a hell of a lot of fun to play. At number 11 we have Golden Axe, a fantasy-themed hack-and-slash beat-em-up where you play as Axe Battler, Tyrius Flare or Gilius Thunderhead, fighting through hordes of enemies to defeat the evil Death Adder. The game was known for its unique magic system, rideable beasts and medieval combat. The music of this game was always memorable for me, and it would always stand out and be heard whenever entering the arcade. This was another of those games that was a must play, and again it was one of those games I actually completed whilst playing alongside some random guy as a kid. I think it's fair to say that this is an all-time classic. At number 10 we have Vendetta, a gritty, no-holds-barred beat-em-up. Vendetta, also known as Crime Fighters 2, throws players into a violent battle against the ruthless Dead End gang. You play as one of 4 vigilantes: Blood, Hawk, Boomer or Sledge, each with their own fighting style, as they punch, kick and body slam their way through seedy streets, rundown bars and criminal hideouts. Unlike many beat-em-ups of its time, Vendetta features some of the most brutal combat mechanics in arcade gaming. Players can perform devastating moves like pile drivers, flying kicks, and even grab enemies to knee them in the face repeatedly. The game also introduces interactive environments, allowing players to pick up crates, chains, baseball bats, knives, and even guns to use against enemies. The game doesn't shy away from its raw street level aesthetic, with gritty urban environments, punk rock inspired enemies, and over the top boss fights. It's an intense, hard-hitting experience that blends classic beat-em-up action with a darker, more violent edge. Vendetta may not be as well known as Final Fight or Double Dragon, but for fans of hardcore arcade brawlers, it's a real hidden gem and one of my all-time favourites. At number 9 we have The Simpsons. Now this, in my opinion, is one of the most beloved multiplayer beat-em-ups of all time. The game captures the humour and charm of the animated series, whilst delivering classic arcade action. Your aim is to rescue Maggie, who has been kidnapped by Mr. Burns' henchman, Smithers. The rest of the Simpsons family, Homer, Marge, Bart and Lisa, set off on a chaotic rescue mission across Springfield. The levels take place through a variety of wacky locations, including Springfield's downtown streets, Krusty Land and Moe's Tavern. The game is filled with classic Simpsons references and cameos from Springfield's quirky residents. With its bright cartoony visuals, fantastic animation and addictive multiplayer action, The Simpsons arcade game remains one of the greatest beat-em-ups ever made, and a nostalgic favourite for the fans of the show. At number 8 we have Knights of the Round, and as a kid I absolutely loved this game. Inspired by the legend of King Arthur, this beat-em-up lets players control King Arthur, Lancelot or Percival as they fight their way to claim the throne. One of the game's standout mechanics is its levelling system. As players defeat enemies and collect treasures, their characters level up, visually changing into more regal and powerful versions of themselves, complete with upgraded armour and weapons. This progression system adds an RPG-like element, making each battle feel rewarding. Combat is fluid, with parrying mechanics that allow players to block an enemy attack, a rare feature in beat-em-ups of the time. Players can also mount rideable war horses, trampling enemies and swinging their weapons from horseback, making for some dynamic combat scenarios. The game's environments are richly detailed, featuring medieval villages, dark dungeons and grand castles. The bosses are formidable knights and warriors, and requiring skill and teamwork to defeat, making this game another must-play arcade game. At number 7 we have the X-Men. For me, one of the best multiplayer beat-em-ups ever made. The X-Men arcade game was a fast-paced, action-packed beat-em-up that brings Marvel's iconic mutants to life. The game lets players choose from 6 classic X-Men characters: Wolverine, Cyclops, Storm, Colossus, Nightcrawler and Dazzler, as they battle through waves of Sentinels and supervillains to stop Magneto's plan for world domination. The game's 6-player co-op mode was groundbreaking at the time, featuring a massive widescreen cabinet that allowed all 6 heroes to fight together. Each character has unique attacks and powerful mutant powers, such as Cyclops' Optic Blast, or Storm's Lightning, which dealt very heavy damage but consumed health when used. Players battle through diverse environments, from war-torn city streets to Sentinel-infested factories, and even Magneto's asteroid base. Along the way, you would face off against classic X-Men foes like Juggernaut, Mystique, and the fearsome Magneto himself. With its vibrant comic book visuals, exciting multiplayer action, and iconic characters, X-Men remains one of the best superhero beat-em-ups of all time, and a nostalgic favourite for arcade fans. It's a classic example of Konami's golden era of arcade brawlers. At number 8 we have the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, one of the most iconic beat-em-ups of all time. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles brings the heroes in a half-shell to the arcade in a fast-paced, action-packed brawler. Players take control of Leonardo, Michelangelo, Donatello or Raphael as they battle their way through waves of Foot Clan ninjas, mutant enemies and mechanical terrors to rescue April O'Neil and Splinter from the clutches of Shredder and Krang. Each turtle had their own signature weapon: Leo's katanas, Mikey's nunchucks, Donnie's bow staff and Raph's sais, giving them slightly different attack ranges and playstyles. The game's 4-player co-op mode was a major draw, allowing friends to team up and fight through the levels based on the classic 1987 cartoon, which included the burning streets of New York, the sewers and the Technodrome itself. Packed with fluid animations, colourful comic-inspired visuals and catchy music, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was a massive hit in the arcades and laid the foundation for future Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle games. Its combination of fun, fast combat and nostalgic charm makes it one of the greatest arcade beat-em-ups ever made. At number 5 we have Shinobi and Shadow Dancer, as I really wanted to include them both in this section. Shinobi is a legendary side-scrolling action game that puts you in the role of Joe Musashi, a highly skilled ninja on a mission to rescue kidnapped children from the evil Zed organisation. Unlike traditional beat-em-ups, Shinobi blends martial arts combat with precision platforming and ranged attacks, making it a unique mix of action and strategy. Armed with an unlimited supply of shuriken, Joe can take down enemies from a distance, but he also has close combat attacks and powerful ninjutsu magic, which unleashes devastating screen clearing moves. As players progress through the 5 action-packed missions, they'll face heavily armoured foes, deadly traps and intense boss battles. With its tight controls, challenging gameplay and stylish ninja aesthetic, Shinobi became one of my must-play games. It remains a classic of the ninja action genre and a must-play for fans of arcade side-scrollers.
Mission 1. Finish.
Now Shadow Dancer is the intense action-packed sequel to Shinobi, introducing a unique twist. A loyal attack dog companion. You are this time battling a deadly organisation that has planted bombs throughout the city. Armed with a shuriken, a katana and powerful ninjutsu magic, players must navigate through urban environments, subway stations and industrial complexes, whilst dodging enemy fire and executing precise attacks. The standout feature is the ninja's canine partner, who can be commanded to distract and attack enemies, leaving them vulnerable to finishing moves. The game's tight controls, fluid animations and challenging gameplay confirm its status as a classic ninja action arcade title. At number 4 we have Dragon Ninja, and this was another of my go-to games. Dragon Ninja, also known as Bad Dudes vs Dragon Ninja, delivers classic side-scrolling beat-em-up action with cheesy 80s flair. Players take on the role of Blade and Striker, 2 street tough martial artists. You are tasked with rescuing the kidnapped President Ronnie from the evil Dragon Ninja clan, hence the name Bad Dudes vs Dragon Ninja. Armed with powerful punches, kicks and weapons like daggers and nunchucks, the bad dudes brawl their way through city streets, highways, underground sewers and even a moving truck, battling waves of enemy ninjas and formidable bosses. With its fast-paced combat, co-op gameplay and the over-the-top 80s action movie vibe, Dragon Ninja became a cult classic. This was a must-play game of its time, and it's still a lot of fun to try out now if you've never had the chance. At number 3 we have Double Dragon. Double Dragon is one of the most influential beat-em-ups of all time. You could make the claim that it's the grandfather of the beat-em-up genre, setting the standard for the genre with its co-op gameplay, brutal street fighting and a gripping revenge story. Players control Billy and Jimmy Lee, two martial arts experts on a mission to rescue Billy's kidnapped girlfriend from the ruthless Black Warriors gang. Fighting through city streets, factories, forests and gang hideouts, the brothers use punches, kicks, throws and devastating elbows, as well as weapons like baseball bats, whips and knives stolen from enemies. The game's innovative co-op multiplayer was a huge draw, but in a shocking twist. If both players made it to the end of the game, then they must fight each other to determine who wins the heart of Billy's girlfriend Marion. With its hard-hitting combat, iconic music and gritty urban setting, Double Dragon defined the beat-em-up genre and inspired countless games that followed. The arcade game for me is still the best version of this game, and it's a game I would spend hours playing at the arcade as a kid. It remains a true arcade classic and a must play for fans of side-scrolling brawlers. At number 2 we have Final Fight. Now Final Fight is one of the most legendary beat-em-ups of all time, delivering hard-hitting combat, massive characters and non-stop action in a crime-ridden metropolis. Set in the violent streets of Metro City, the game follows former pro wrestler turned mayor Mike Hager, street brawler Cody and ninja-trained Guy as they battle the ruthless Mad Gear gang to rescue Hager's kidnapped daughter Jessica. Each character has a unique fighting style. Hager relies on sheer brute strength, executing devastating pile drivers. Cody is a balanced fighter with powerful punches and a signature knife attack. And Guy is the fastest, using quick strikes and agile acrobatics. Players fight their way through slums, subways, nightclubs and high-rise buildings, facing an army of Mad Gear thugs. The game introduced weapon-based combat, food-based health recovery and fast-paced fluid action, making it a defining game of the beat-em-up genre. With its huge sprites, crisp animation and satisfying co-op gameplay, Final Fight became a massive arcade hit and set the blueprint for future Capcom brawlers like Captain Commando and The Punisher. So finally, at number 1, we have Crime Fighters. Now this may come as a surprise, and many of you might not even have heard of this game, but oh my god did I love this game growing up. Crime Fighters is a gritty and hard-hitting beat-em-up from Konami, putting players in the role of an undercover cop taking on a ruthless crime syndicate to rescue a group of kidnapped women. Armed with nothing but their fists at first, players brawl through dark alleyways, subways, nightclubs and warehouses, taking on waves of street thugs, bikers and gangsters. The game features 4-player co-op, allowing a squad of players to team up for chaotic all-out street justice. Combat is brutal, with punches, kicks, knees to the face and vicious finishing moves, plus weapons like knives, pipes and even guns. Enemies don't hold back, swarming the player with relentless attacks, making for an intensely challenging arcade experience. Boss fights are tough and varied, featuring everything from masked assassins to massive bruises, and even a twist ending where players must fight each other to see who gets the credit for saving the hostages. Also at the end of the game, you entered a mode called the Bosses Strike Back, which was basically where all of the bosses appeared on the screen at the same time, and you had to defeat them all. With its gritty urban setting, fast-paced combat, and unforgiving difficulty, Crime Fighters paved the way for later Konami classics like Vendetta and The Simpsons arcade game. It was a tough-as-nails beat-em-up that rewarded your skill, teamwork, and cost a lot of your pocket money. So those are my top 20 side-scrolling arcade beat-em-ups. So thanks for watching, please do like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.